Hey everybody, my name is Jay Martin, and this is a Napoleon video. It's a commentary, and this is a 3 versus 4. So on my team, there are 3 players. We're playing against 4 people. In this case, I'm on the right side, MGB, and the center is Triphammer, and on the left side is France, is Riskard. And these are some Huntsman guys, and lately we've been playing a lot of 3 versus 4 battles. And the last time I posted one of these, some haters were all, well, you can only do this against other bad players. And I want to say, well, that helps, or that's nice if you can get it. But first of all, it's kind of like Huntsman policy that we play with anyone. If a 1-star player joins the game, if a 9-star player joins the game, it doesn't matter. We play with anyone, and we compete with everybody, and we try to beat everyone. And we don't discriminate based on how many stars you have or whatever. But B, I don't see anybody else trying to fucking do this. This shit is hard. I don't know if you ever tried to play a 3 versus 4 game or a 2 versus 3 game, but if your opponent has 30% more units than you, it's fucking hard. And it doesn't matter what you're doing, but you will run out of bullets. And you need to be very careful about how you manage your army in a 3 versus 4 game or a 2 versus 3 game. And then the third, so I don't see anybody else trying to do it. And then the third thing I say, in the previous game as well as this game, in this game our opponents were 1 6-star and 2 5-stars and 1 4-star. So I think that we're facing pretty credible opposition. And, you know, the last thing I note is that obviously this is sort of an attempt from us to just make things competitive. I mean, I don't want to be... what's the word, egotistical or anything, but yeah, we beat most of the people we play, and a way that we find to get a competitive game is certainly to play outnumbered. I don't see any problem with that. I mean, we win the majority of games that we play, and in order to introduce an element of things that we can't control or an element of difficulty, yes, we play against more people. I don't know how you hate on that. I don't know. But anyway, this is the game that we got going. I do not remember the names of the people we played against. I will give you a little spoiler at the beginning that I played like a complete dickhead in this game. I did not do terribly well. I'm going to spend most of the game in fast forward because this game was really, really long. And what I did, this is me over here, I'm on the right side. What I did is I made the mistake of overreaching or going past my limits. I'd played a really great game up until one particular point, and then at that point, I reached too far, and reaching too far really, really, really cost me. I'm going to try to get to that point here in a minute. And this is what's going on my side is my opponent runs for the hill. What I'm trying to do is, see that militia unit I have right there? I'm trying to position that unit so that his units will fire into the dirt and waste a bunch of ammo and not actually shoot me. But my opponent is actually kind of smart. And he runs up to the hill at an angle that he actually can shoot at me. And you can see that's me moving a line unit up there to actually be able to shoot back at him. I mentioned this in my last 3v4 video, but what's really, really important is you have to find ways to maximize your ammo use. You will run out of ammunition. Unless you are incredibly careful, you will run out of ammunition. So you need to be really, really careful about every single shot you take. And you find yourself turning fire at will on and off a lot for all your units, yada, yada, yada. If you look at the mini-map, that might give you a better clue of what's going on. We're the blue team, and the red are the opponents. And so the initial engagement does start on my side. All of our opponents are being pretty aggressive. They're all moving up. And my opponent especially is moving up on his flank. Excuse me. Man, I got something caught in my throat there. Anyway, my opponent is moving up pretty aggressively on his flank. And, you know, on Syria, giving your opponent the ridge is not the worst thing possible. I did target fire on that Voltigeur. to get them taken care of. But otherwise, we have kind of a seesaw battle for the hill going on. There's not a whole lot at this point going on the other side of the map, so I'm just going to let you watch this for a minute. And I would zoom in and out, but when you're on fast forward like this, your camera controls are really retarded. They're really slowed down. You can't really control your camera that well, so I can't move the camera that well. So when I want to move the camera, I'll switch back to play and then go back and forth. But not much interesting is happening. Trip and actually Trip does well. Trip and Riss both. Let me take an opportunity. If you, God, I suck at that. Okay, so Trip has the real difficulty of that's Trip right there. Of he has to hold down 2 opponent armies. And the idea is that Riskard and I should, on the flanks, engage and destroy our opponents. And so Trip in the center is having to hold off his opponent. And you notice that on the far left here, well, that's my engagement for the hill. And then Trip is having to be really, really clever about bottleneck control and everything to control his opponent. If you want to try this 3v3 thing, or excuse me, 3v4 thing, what you really, really got to do is be really careful about who's shooting at who and manage where they're shooting, yada, yada, yada. On my side, we are... I'm cat and mousing with my guy, and eventually I'm going to get the advantage on him. And things are moving kind of slowly. The GB player does cause some problems. See this area of the map right here? Let me try to zoom you in a little bit. Right now, the opponent GB player right here causes us some problems because he starts moving on and kind of the junction. That's Triphammer's unit, that's my unit, and we kind of have a junction right here between 2 armies. And this GB player starts trying to kind of fill or make a move on that junction. And that does cause us a bit of problems. I move one of my line units up to engage their lights right there. That turns out not to be a great idea. You're probably going to see me withdraw here in a second. But these guys did show a fair bit of teamwork by trying to cover each other's flanks, yada, yada, yada. And if you look at the minimap, you can see that... oh, let me slow down and put you back over there. Come on, go. Go. Over here, my opponent had tried to make a move up. You can, if you want, you can move up on this little sliver of land up on the side here. And he had put a bunch of cav in just 2 volts. Now, if I was smart, what I did have is I had 2 line units that were hidden, kind of guarding this area. If I was smart, I would have had a cav unit back there. I brought 2 cav to this game. And right now, a cav charge into those volts would be really, really good. I do wind up kind of chasing those volts up that section of the map, but nothing really big comes out of it. But that was some flanking action that kind of happened on this area of the map. Here the French player is being pretty aggressive with me, and he's moving up, which I totally respect. I do get to see this line unit here. I get this unit kind of caught in no man's land, but it was getting a really good fire off, getting really good casualties. In hindsight, that was probably a mistake. But at the time, I didn't want to retreat it because it was just getting such good shots off. Like, I had a perfect field of fire for that Swiss unit up there. My opponent had this. This is kind of funny, but he had this grenadier unit that he kept trying to get into melee. And this is kind of the end of the first phase of the battle. In this phase of the battle, I kind of win the initial engagement against my opponent and force him to start to retreat. And he's going to retreat back to this area of the map right there. So that's kind of the first phase of the battle, is I win that little push on my flank, and we're kind of... The enemy GB player right there is not being terribly aggressive. But what I want to do is take you over back to... if I can get into play again. Again, Triphammer is controlling his side. And then this is Riskard's side of the map right here. So I want to watch this for a little bit. So we just switched from my end on the far right, where I have my opponent in retreat, to Riskard on the far left. So Riskard's opponent has brought a legit army, and what he's done is Riskard's opponent has a ton of troops. He's overloaded this far left flank here. Riskard's holding that down with some of his guys. And what Riskard's kind of doing is what you have to do is kind of waiting for his opponent to make a move. There's a little bit of a problem in that this dude has a bunch of volts loaded up on this flank here, so Riskard can't win. Now you're noticing that Riskard's moving his guys up because you don't have any other solution. When your opponent outranges you, you have to move up. So what Riskard does is he moves his guys up to get in range of those volts. And a firefight starts on this side of the map. If you look at the mini-map, you can tell that our guys are just trying to hold the line here. And on the right side, I am kind of theoretically winning. And on the left side, that Riskard is just kind of starting his engagement. There is a little trick that Trip and Riss employ, and Trip was trying to teach to me in the course of the game, but I didn't understand it until I watched the replay. But when you're shooting uphill, you can put your lights behind your line, and they will all shoot, because the angle that they're shooting at is a higher angle than what the line is shooting at, or the line's height. It may be hard to do that without giving you a good example. Let me try to do that right now. Oh, God, I fucking suck at camera control. But if you look at this, check this out. So Riskard's lights right here are shooting at the opponent unit right up there, but they're shooting at an angle higher than Riskard's line units exist at. So he can position his lights back here, and they're still going to shoot over the heads of his line, is kind of what I'm getting at. So that's actually a pretty good trick. That thought had never occurred to me. See, like, I've played Napoleon for so long, and little things like that really always impress me that I find out about. This is a look back at my flank. Just kind of withdrawing. My guys put a whole bunch of force up on the hill. You can see from the mini-map that with all the little white dots there that I am kind of routing this player little by little, but I'm not being nearly as decisive as I need to be. Back over to Riskard's flank. Here we have some light-on-light shootout. But the real story on Riskard's flank, though, is this shootout, if you watch my mouse, right up here, where he's kind of pushing the fourth and then third French player back. And again, the mini-map kind of tells the story. There's a big engagement right here. That is reflected in the mini-map right here. And this is just a shootout. There's no better way to put it. But, he's moving his guys up right here, and he's going to catch them in kind of a ball. I don't really know what this person was thinking at the time. They're kind of doing a bunch of random shit with all the units, and that gives Riskard the opportunity to put a bunch of fire on them, which is exactly what you need. Now, another thing to keep in mind is that how we're using our cav in this game. And in this game, I brought 2 cav units, and I think Riskard brought 1 or 2. I don't think Triphammer brought any. You have to be really careful when you're playing outnumbered. You honestly just can't afford to bring cav. You can't afford to do it. And one thing that was happening, that happened in our game is that I thought that I could have got better value out of the cav that I did bring, but this is a look at Triphammer's section of the battle in the center. That's the junction. That's Riskard there, and Triphammer here. He's holding off 2 armies. But one thing that we do is you got to move really cautiously because you don't have any cav, and so you got to be really careful. This is a good look at the point in the battle where I make a huge fuck up. You can see I'm moving 2 of my line units around to get enfilading fire on the hill right there where my opponent is. This seemed like a really good idea at the time, and the majority of that far-right French players' units were depleted. And I was doing really good at this point. I don't think maybe I'd lost maybe one unit. I'd done really, really well up to this point. Um, but I managed to fuck this up so completely. Those are the two Voltigears that are retreating from. They're the ones that had made the initial foray onto the other side of this lake here. And what I do is so stupid. A combination of two things. The big perspective or the big picture is that I didn't play cautious enough. I should have. When you're outnumbered like this, you have to play cautious, and you have to really husband your units and husband your men. You got to treat your men well, and I did not do that. If we watch this for a moment, my big mistake is that I'm going to use my units a bit more aggressively than I should. And a combination of that and a bunch of cav from the next player over is going to just completely wreck my army. It's worth sticking around for. Let me try to get you into a better camera position here. Okay, here we go. That's pretty good. Alright, so what's going on is that I've wrapped two of my line units around here, and I should be getting good shots on this unit. In a second, these two random volts. If those two random volts, if I had routed them earlier, if I had moved a cav unit into that forest over here, things would have gone so much better for me. But instead, these two units actually decide a large part of this battle. At least from my perspective, because I'm fucking stupid. And a bunch of fire their routes one of my line units. My opponent is kind of retreating across the way. Now, what's worth saying is at this point in the game, I had a bunch of reserve line units they hadn't even used yet. I probably had 5 or 6 line units that I had not used yet. But I push a bunch of them into this area of the map, and I proceed to just completely waste them. I wish I could even move the camera faster, but what I do, or the mistake that I make, is that I just move way too aggressively. I should have been more patient. I could have waited this guy out. And what we talked about earlier, and what I should have done is I should have just been patient over here and then shifted a bunch of my resources over to help Trip Hammer in the center. I didn't do that. That was a huge mistake on my part. And honestly, the more interesting part of the battle at this point is over on Riskard's side, because Riskard is like fucking people up. He is killing the shit out of everyone. But I want to show you this. This is where I make my big mistake. So I move this unit around to the side here into this forest, and I have a cav unit. That's my cav unit chasing those volts. And I try to go for the general. I do route the volts. I go for the general, and I think my engagement stops right there because my cav unit's going to route. Now, what I do is I run up the hill, and I made a huge mistake right now because I thought this guy repositioned his line to shoot backwards to shoot at my cav, and that was false. So my units are going to run up the hill right here, and they're going to take volleys right in the fucking face. And the next couple minutes of footage are really kind of retarded because I get melee charged, which probably was a good idea from that guy, and my units route like, yep, there goes the first one, like nothing's happening. And I got completely fucked up. I made a huge mistake. Moving my units up that hill was a terrible mistake, and this goes on to cost our team dearly. Yep, there goes my second one. I have a light unit that gets meleeed by Swiss, and I just get completely fucked up in this engagement, and this cost me so much. If you notice, let me try to move around. While my micro, I played so poorly at this point. While my micro was engaged on the hill right there, a bunch of cav from this guy came in, and not only were my units over here out of ammo, but I missed a couple squares, and the result of this was, see, that's an enemy cav unit. I had just enemy calves swirling all over my line, and I did not react to it well at all. Like, look at that shit. There's 2 enemy cav units that are fucking at my line, and my army takes a complete piss right at this point, and I totally let my team down right here. You don't want to be in that position. I completely let my team down, and about half of my army. I must have lost like 8 or 9 units right here in this engagement, and I took cav from a bunch of players that I just did not react to well. I moved up on the hill, which was a bad decision, and I really played like shit at this particular time. So there's a lesson. You got to be conservative. You got to husband your resources well. At this point, I start to retreat and form a line right here. Trip Hammer is holding the line in the center, and Riskard is actually winning on his flank. This is Riskard back here. He's moving his. Excuse me, that's Riskard. That's the remnants of Riskard, the far left opponent, and this is Riskard getting engaged on this guy. And right now, obviously, we're pretty dependent on the rest of our team, or I'm dependent because I fucking got my ass kicked. Pretty dependent on the rest of my team to do well. And not only did I fail, I mean, I pretty much killed my guy, but he had a couple units left. I'm gonna fight to a standstill with my guy, with taking a couple chinks out of the number 3 guy. So I kind of fought to a standstill with number 4 guy. Number 3 guy took a couple hits out of him, but I'm really relying on my teammates because I fucked up so bad to win the rest of the game for us. These are Riskard's units right here, and he's engaging. These are the opponent units, and Rissa's being really aggressive right now. Riskard's already killed his first opponent, and you can tell that is a unit that is out of ammunition. It's a Swiss that he's charging in for melee against a Swiss. And we're not doing too bad right now, despite, facing the preponderance of numbers that we're facing. We're not doing terribly bad. We're actually doing okay. And, this flank right here will decide it, because Trip can probably beat 1.5 players. He's good enough at the game that you can probably do that. And Riskard already beat his left opponent. And the real question for us is how many units can Riskard take out before his army's exhausted? His army has already fought a really hard battle on the far left, taking out his initial opponent. These guys were good players, man. They were good players, and Riskard's already fought a really hard battle. Trip is probably skilled enough to take out 1.5 players. I obviously failed. I took about 1 player out. So we have to get really lucky. We have to do something. We have to do something interesting at some point in this game for this to work. Here's a look on Trip Hammer's end of the game. He's holding off, that GB player, and this French player here is mostly engaged with Riskard on their left side. And then these units here are me holding, and I'm holding off the cav elements of the number 3 player and the infantry elements of the number 4 player that I haven't killed yet. Trip is pretty damn healthy. We have that going for us. What we don't have going for us is that these are all enemy units right here. And Riskard is advancing up on this axis right here. So this is Riskard. These are our opponents, and in the center you have Trip Hammer here holding off these 2 players. And so really, by virtue of the unit positioning here, the remnants of Riskard's army here were kind of asking to take on this big gob of units here, which probably isn't fair, but if you're going to want somebody to do it, then that's the man to do it. And I don't know who else I'd want to be occupying that position. So these guys are here, And the battle really is decided, and this could go really bad for us, but the battle is really decided, again, if you look at the lines, on Riskard's moving up this flank. And this is Trip Hammer here. So these two players are kind of putting a pincher movement. So those are Trip Hammer's GB units right there. And these are Riskard's French units right here. They're kind of putting a pincher movement on the remains of the number 2 player, or the French player here. And if they can surround and destroy these units, then we'll be in a much, much better position than we were previously. Oh, I forgot something. Something that I did is I had saved a cav unit that I totally hid. And where is she? There she is right there. And the only smart thing that I did with this cav unit is that I initially routed the French player's general. And you can see this cav unit is moving this direction. Come on, cav unit. And I go after this French player here. And I really hope that I got good value out of this cav unit. I think that with the help of this cav unit, we were able to wrap up this French player here. I don't get this player's general, but what I am able to do... And man, this is a really good reason for like hiding a cav unit in any given game. Like, you never know when an extra cav unit is really, really going to come in handy. But that is the remnants of the number 3 player, and that's my cav unit there, causing them to retreat. Oh. And I think we're going to get in there and charge them a few times again, honestly. Yeah, and the kind of result of that is this player's general wound up dying, and these are Trip and Riss's units right here. Here comes another charge. I think he gets in the square, so I pull off. Yeah, I pull off. And I don't have much to do in this part of the battle, honestly. Will we come around for another charge? I think maybe we're going to go after that unit. And, just having that one extra cav right when you need it to kickstart a chain route really fucking matters. I mean, it's like it should almost be policy for good players to, keep a cav unit in reserve. It really comes in handy. But that is really good news for us, because remember that French player there? So we kind of finally routed them. And the net result of that is that after we route this player, let me get you back to the initial perspective. My players are two right here, so this right here are the enemy units. And what we're going to be able to do is kind of rush up and take them out. Those are my units on the right. Those are Trip's units on the left. And our opponent units are kind of here. I think those are opponent units too. But you can see Trip and Riss in the far left where I'm moving my mouse right now. Those are their units coming back. And our opponents retreat back to this forest. They retreat to this area here. Let me get you a better look at it. There you go. So they're going to retreat to this forest area here. And we've got them outnumbered. Our team has played really good up to this point, and we've got them outnumbered. And it's at this point that you gotta love Trip Hammer, man. You gotta love how he rolls. But he starts the chat and he tries to offer them the option of surrender, or the offer to an honorable surrender and just lay down your weapons. And it'd be neat if there was like a concede option in this game, but he tells them, hey, just all you got to do is, we respect the effort you put into the game, and y'all played very well. But obviously we have the upper hand now, so if you wanted to concede out of the game, we'd respect that. There's no point to the continued loss of life. What's really cool about Trip Hammer, let me segue for a second, is Trip Hammer's the founder of the Huntsman clan, or the clan I'm in, and he's a really cool guy, really intense guy, and kind of takes Napoleon really seriously, and I am so down with that. And he kind of, in his brain, he can sort of visualize each of the little soldiers in your unit as a real actual human. And for him, he doesn't necessarily like when those little digital men die, and he does like it when those little digital men leave. And what's kind of funny is that when he tries to offer our opponents terms of surrender at this point in the game, he actually means it. He actually means it. And if you're an average just video game player, I think this is something that you wouldn't understand. But that's kind of how he rolls. That's his deal. He actually thinks that's a good way to carry yourself. And I gotta say, I kind of agree with it. It makes sense with me. So, anyway, that was the end of this 3v4 game. Riskard and Trip, GG guys, thanks for playing with me. All the guys who are our opponents here. There you go. Thanks for playing with me again. We had a great time. Riskard is a big kills winner. Couldn't have done without him. I kind of sucked. Trip beat me out. Blah, blah, blah. But anyway, GG, thanks for watching if you made it this far. And I'm Jay Martin. Check out twreplays.com.